Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, we've got a lovely guest this morning, David O'Connell. There's a good old Irish name, or is it, as they call us, plastic paddies?
Something
a bit like myself, yeah. But lovely to see you, David. Now, David is the managing director and owner.
Yes.
That's your cue, David.
Part owner. 51%, so I have the lion's share. My wife owns the other 14 on me.
So Amanda will be pleased that she got the mention
Absolutely,
there.
Yeah.
Amanda, if you are listening, he was a bit worried when I said, "Are you the owner?" David, as I've just said, is the managing director, co-owner, and it's of it's DBF Communications, but the services they provide are wireless duplex communications, radios, repairs, servicing, rental, and purchasing. And we'll get into the relationship with the aviation industry and also the rail industry. So we've got a lot of surprises to come. So David, thank you very, very much for coming on board. Really appreciate it. Now, first question, as I ask everybody else, why did you come on the podcast? Why did you decide to come on?
Thank you. I just got to correct you. It's DBD Communications.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
What did I say?
You said DBF.
Oh, DBF. I do apologise.
I'm sure DBF is a very good company, but it's not us.
Okay, fair enough.
DBD Communications. So why did I come on podcast? Well, I've never done this before. It sounds quite exciting. I'm all up for new challenges and new experiences.
That's it.
And I think it gives me the opportunity to talk about DBD and the growth that we've done and basically, the rags to riches story that hopefully I'm going to share with you over the next few minutes.
Nice one. Rags to riches. Right, that'll be a good one. Now, what the principle was when we started this was to get to know the person behind positions, but also to make sure that we were attractive enough or gaining enough interest to bring the next generation into the business and make them feel pleased that they would be working or taking over the mantle of the people that they would listen to. So it's all about personalities, risks, coaching, mentoring, it's things like that. So that's what we'll be covering.
Excellent.
So now, I'm not sure, but like myself, I never ever sat in a school and thought to myself, I'm going to get into cargo and air freight and logistics. Never once. I fell into it. How did you come into the business?
Into air specifically, we sort of donated ourselves into it around about 2010. The background of the company, we were able to successfully complete a product in the rail industry. So we were in construction. We actually have currently about 80% share of the UK construction market.
Oh, nice one.
So on what it done, it came from a story where there was some serious injuries occurring around about 2008 due to poor communications. Yeah. So we created a short-range wireless communication system to fulfill the need and allap a lot of the safety risks, which was quite good because there was some serious incidents going on and where people were getting injured and unfortunately fatalities. So since the introduction of duplex comms on the railway line, it's actually reduced injuries by about 10%. Okay. So there's been a very good reduction of fatalities that you can't always attribute to duplex comms, but it's definitely reduced since 2012 from its introduction. So from that, we actually saw that where we were looking at alternative markets to try and do some market integration and take our product into other areas, we saw that effectively ground handling was still using what I loosely term as a dog lead, walking out the aircraft when they're on pushback. So it's a 12-metre cable that the headset man talking to the cockpit is communicating to the cockpit. It's quite old. That situation obviously has maintenance issues. Yep. That cable's a snag hazard. It's got repair. It's quite expensive to keep repairing it regularly. So our thoughts were to try and go wireless. Clearly, some of the other competitors in the marketplace have done exactly the same and looked to that. But we feel that we've got the best range of a product, so we can actually communicate to the pilot up to 175 metres away and still communicate. So they're not going to be pushing back an aircraft from that distance, but it does give you the confidence that it's always going to work everywhere around the aircraft you're going to be walking.
Oh, fantastic. And because, excuse me now, but how do they not interrupt the pilots when they're communicating with anybody else, whether it's the control tower or their own organisation?
It's a dedicated link to the pilot. When the pilot's being pushed back from his stand, he's directly communicating to the headset man on the ground. It's almost like a person. If if you're in a large vehicle and you ask someone to dismount and control you from the back, and you're waving them in and out, you're like the marshaller. That's exactly what's happening with the aircraft, because obviously it's a very expensive piece of equipment. The pilot can't see everything that's behind him. He has to have someone pushing him back. So he's actually listening to that person and hearing for special commands. The guy on the ground has the ability to communicate normally with a button, and it's a press to talk button. So he's communicating. So the pilot doesn't need to hear everything that's going on the ground, but only specific commands and controls that headset man gives him. So that's how it works.
And how would that then kick in with the wireless? Because obviously there's no button.
Well, no, it is wireless from the headset. So they would push a button on the headset to communicate, but they've got an open mic all the time that's coming from the cockpit. So anytime the cockpit wants to talk to them, they have the ability to summon up the headset man. The headset man can push his button and talk back to them. The wireless bit allows them to be untethered from the aircraft. So they can actually, in the past, it's almost like the matriarch elephant as they walk in and out of the ramp, and they're always walking in the same path. Now, of course, they can move around. They've got a lot more chance with the wireless system to look around them, look in other areas that they weren't able to do. So it gives them that freedom of movement.
Okay, good. No, brilliant. And obviously, you going back to the rail issues, the fact that it helped with the reduction in safety issues. I'm assuming that's with guys who are working on the rail lines.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that.
I mean, we've got in rail alone, we've got over 2 million products that are all approved by Network Rail. We deal with all the major contractors. We deal with Network Rail themselves, and we basically we alert their safety risk for those guys that are working on trackside. Generally, we're not talking about when rolling stock are moving through. We're talking about an engineering work site. So they're working with excavators and cranes and this type of equipment.
Yeah. Okay. So it's important to know all the time. Huh? Now, as far as your background, and getting into DBD.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. No problem. No problem. I'm sure we'll mention DBD many times now. How did it all come about? What's your history, your background?
I don't know how long you've got. If you want to pull up a sandbag, I can take you all the way through the whole history. I was working on the bench many years ago in the 70s for an electronics company based in Harlow in Essex, where I grew up.
Yeah.
But then I had a mad rush of blood to the head and joined the army. Thought I'd give it a go. It's good fun. I spent 14 years in the military. Great education, great experiences, learned communication systems engineering, upside down in tanks, playing around with all sorts of different communication systems and bits and pieces. And then around about 1994, I then decided to hand me notice in. They was offering redundancies, so which I did, and then came out of the military and worked for a German company. Then I went through a couple of corporations. I was a head of sales at Marconi for a while and BAE Systems, and then jumped into componentry. So I broke the mold of the military salesman and started working in the telecoms industry, working into the likes of Nokia and Ericsson. 2001 helped open up a manufacturing plant in Nanjing in China, which was an interesting time. And then...
how long were you out there?
Oh, I was literally we set up a company. I wasn't out there permanently. We just helped set it up. So, and then in 2002, I had another rush of blood to the head. I don't know what it is with this rushes of blood to the head. Yeah. Major career changes. And I think it was Amanda, my wife, nagging me so much if you stop moaning about other people and do it yourself. So we did.
Fair play to her. That's a good one.
Yeah, behind every good man, as they say. So we literally went in what I... basically tease and say Harry Potter world, and we set up under the stairs, and basically on a laptop, myself, my wife, 2 Pyrenean mountain dogs, and trying to see if we could work some business, which we did, and we started to work various different accounts, and we had exclusivity. We were basically buying and selling components and designing things into systems and stuff, and I was consulting with a number of companies doing different things with. Working with Ford Motor Company, working with BAE Systems, working with various other big blue chip type organisations, but primarily trying to grow DBD communications in the background. I think the quantum change in the organisation was when we started to build our own product, and that was after when we got into the rail industry. So Yeah, it was literally from the bench to where we are now. The company's got about 40 people working for us now. We're working internationally out into Asia and other places, around the world. We successfully support the rail industry in the UK, so we've created some very good jobs with respect to apprenticeships. But we also, as I affectionately call it, we keep the silverbacks going. And what we've done is and actually we had Department of Work and Pensions come and see us last year, and we were mentioned in Parliament in the fact that we've got quite a good scheme of where we can keep people employed at their latter years, so that they can reduce down to 1 or 2 days a week. They can work to their way so that they can be available for weekends or what suits them. And actually they were quite impressed with our model of how we approach the young and the old as such.
But I'm passionate about that. Obviously, I'm not young anymore.
Neither am I.
No, but seriously, I've found, and I know so many people in the industry, that when it comes to them leaving, they're pretty sad. I know everybody thinks, I'm going off into the Wild West or the Route 66, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and that's fantastic because you've got to have something to keep you going. But it is quite a sad time for people because they realise what they've done for so long, it's not going to happen anymore. Oh, they're not needed, or they don't have a support system around them or whatever. And I just think if you can bridge people coming in who are a little bit impatient, the younger ones, they need a little bit of experience, a nice balance. If you get it where neither one of them feels intimidated by the other, but it's a joint exercise to bridge and to give them the best possible chance for them to achieve in the future, I think it's fantastic.
No, you're absolutely right.
And people would love it.
It's not just about age blending, it's also about the artisan or the engineer.
Yeah.
The artisan, sometimes, there are skills in the artisan that are not necessarily in the graduate engineer. So academia sometimes has to realise that the artisan route is just as important as the academia route. And we have a good mix, I think. And I'm quite passionate about making sure that we utilise people's skills. I'm help support ex sort of REME people. My old corps in the military was a REME, and I'm part of I support a Raja system, which is the resettlement of people that are leaving the forces, as well as there's a St Elijah's Club, which was the patron saint of REME.
Remember that?
St Elijah's Club. And basically what we try and do is at certain times of the year get together, and anyone that's thinking of leaving the corps, we try and help them to give our experiences and tell them what this non-cotton wool environment, Civvy Street, is all about, because believe me, it's completely different. And some of these people have done 27 years in one job, and that takes some adjusting when they've been in that sort of situation, and now they've got to change and possibly in some cases start a new career.
Yeah, but it's not just one job, it's a way of life, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's totally different. I think that's brilliant. And I think because there's a lot of adverts on the telly now, and I think that's a great one. The one where it shows the ship and the guys marching, and it says absolutely. Going into battle, and they still went forward. I think it's fantastic. People don't realise how important servicemen and women are. I think it's
very lucky.
And what they do. It's it's incredible.
Yeah. Oh, I mean they do. They're still and remarkably still doing a fantastic job, and long may it continue. I think it's great. And I've always. And so that's from a seniority point of view. On the younger side of things, I've happily coached my two boys at rugby. And I'm a rugby coach, retired now, unfortunately. Can't take the knocks and blocks anymore. But so I coach them through their sort of early teenage years with rugby. And it's really exciting to see the youngsters also come on, because you can guide and mentor people into a point that they actually can... They feel fulfilled, and they see reason and rationale as to why we do certain things, like polishing your shoes or putting a club tie on, or that's quite important. And some people forget that importance.
Yeah, standards.
Absolutely.
And I'm really sounding old now, but I think some of those basics are gone because people spend so much time on a mobile phone, looking into that. Yeah. But I love the road. Like my talking to you earlier, my son as well. I'm a bit biased. He's fly half, and I always say there's the three best fly halves I've ever seen. All have a J in their name: Johnny Wilkinson, Johnny Sexton, and and Joe Notter. I think he's number 10, beautiful.
Some people don't. Glenn Hoddle went to my school.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. And he was actually a pretty good fly-half as well. But he decided to go Tottenham. But there you go.
He did well. Poor old Tottenham now, eh?
Oh, well, we won't talk about
that. No. Now, getting back to rugby.
Yeah.
Beautiful principles, beautiful ethos,
Absolutely.
Everything. It's a real man's game. But the values are incredible. And when you're lining up and relying on somebody else to take a hit or make a tackle or pressure, you realise how important every single position is in that team. And the beautiful thing about rugby, you can be 6'8" and you can be 5'6". And you look at the Japanese, the two fly halves now, they're incredible. Now that understanding and awareness of how valuable a team is, those sort of principles, I think, are also so important. So now, as far as your coaching and being coached or mentored, who would you like to mention as being a big influence on you when you came into any part of your career?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I think when I joined Roland Schwarz, a German company, they had a tremendous sales ethos and profile. I had no idea that I was ever going to go into a sales role. When I thought I was an engineer going into Civvy Street, had no idea. And a chap called Campbell Morrow, great Irishman, he sat me down and said, "Well, I'm going to offer you a job, and I want you to be one of our sales guys." And I had no idea what that meant, but actually, it came good. So, that company I turned around quite quickly once I grasped the principles of what selling was all about, and I literally went home. After my second interview, I said, "Well, what job have you got?" And I was given the job. I said, "Well, I think I go out, have lunch with people, and talk." So I said, "It sounds a good job," but actually, that's what it was in the first stages. But then you start realising you've got time pressures and you've got got to make targets and all the rest of it. But it was great, and he was very influential in my transition, should we say, from the military into a more commercial world. Yeah.
But it's great, isn't it? If somebody can see something in you, even if you're not sure yourself, Absolutely. But they're so confident and they give you that extra support, and then suddenly you do something that you didn't think you were able to do. I think that's it's a brilliant value. Yeah. Now, with that, what would you say has been your biggest success in coaching anybody else that's come after you or that's with your company now? Okay. Obviously, you've got a couple close to home.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Well, within DBD Communications, both my daughter and the eldest boy are actually in the company. Claire's, she had a career. She was working in project management in other areas in the pharmaceutical industry, and then into sort of packaging and labelling. And she produced a grandson. And
it's great, isn't it? Eh?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Little Harry, love him. But then there was a transition from basically having Harry and then getting Harry up and running and all the rest of it, and now she's come into the company full time. So she's now currently she sits as the business manager, but in the future she'll eventually take over when myself and Amanda start to hang our boots up as such. Secondly, Andrew is.
She knows that, does she?
She does know that. Yeah,
she does now. Anyway.
She does now anyway. Yeah, definitely. Andrew. He's joined the company this year, which is quite exciting. He's been out and cut his teeth in industry. He was a machine engineer, so he's doing turning, milling, grinding, that sort of stuff. So very mechanical engineering. But he's coming in and he's now looking to run. Well, he is running the workshop and doing a lot of field installations and stuff like that. So he's going to be part of that as well. And what a fantastic feeling. With 2 out of 3, I'll mention the younger one in a moment, but 2 out of 3 I see my children every day, which is great.
That's
nice. Yeah. The youngest one's done very, very well, but he's not coming to the company. He's actually a doctor in the NHS, Dan, so he's doing really well.
But that's fantastic as well. But yeah, it's great, isn't it? Every time you can spend time with your kids is the most valuable of all, isn't it? Yeah. Brilliant. I was just thinking now. My daughter Gabriella, she's a very, very independent young lady, and I'm just thinking now if me and her work together, I'm not sure which one of us would suffer the most. Yeah. But no, she's a cracker.
Well, I think they tolerate me.
So. Yeah, I know. Probably, yeah. But now, one of the things that we're doing is, and I've tried to put this picture of an aircraft on a stand in people's minds, and if you're sitting on it and you look out the window, you just see the basic things happen, but people don't realise how many things and what a web and jigsaw. And I've got to be honest, I wouldn't have thought of yourself. Do you know what I mean? When I was looking out of the window, but now I'll always be looking at that, and it's amazing how it comes about.
I think the airport industry is a complete tangle of so many different markets and capabilities.
Yeah.
And even from things like, so you've got air traffic control. From a comms point of view, there's air traffic control radios that are controlling the aircrafts in the sky.
Yep.
There's radar that's doing that. There's communication systems that are doing all the fire and rescue. There's communications for ground movements. There's communications in the shops, because the shops are talking to each other on radios and stuff like that.
Yep.
There's all this functionality that's going behind any plane that's moving in and out of the aircraft or in and out of the airport. It's unbelievable when you start peeling back the layers of onion and just going through what's going on. And you're absolutely right. Refueling, basically even washing the aircraft, de-icing the aircraft. Yep. All of this stuff needs communications. Everything needs communications. Yep. So there is this whole architecture and hierarchy of needs behind the whole structure of you picking your case up, smiling at the check-in girl, putting your case on the belt, and then getting on the plane, having your first gin and tonic. Behind all of that is so much going on. I've mentioned Harry Potter world once, but it's Harry Potter all over again. There's this whole set of things happening behind the scenes that you don't even realise is going on.
I know, and that's why I think it's a struggle that you go to IATA conferences, and one of the topics, and quite rightly so, is about diversity and getting the next generation in. But I think if we marketed it a lot differently and let everybody see that basically there's so much of everything associated with that aircraft.
Absolutely.
And wherever it happens the same. Every single airport in every single country all over the world. So it's also quite a mobile business. You yourself, you've got Singapore, you've got
Bangkok,
Philippines, Bangkok.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got,
and one thing that's really interesting is that you find people that, like you're saying, if they want to, they have the ability to just up sticks and move to a different country.
Yeah.
Because the skills that they're learning at that airport are governed by various protocols and capabilities that are the same all around the world. So there might be some slight twists and changes, and there might be something slightly different against the guidelines. But generally, if you're a ground handler in England, you could be a ground handler in Singapore. You can be a ground handler in Dubai. You can be a ground handler anywhere you want to go, and you've got that skill. And also, I've found that there is good career path generation.
Yep.
So if you're good and you do your job, it's like any job. Yep. If you do your job well. Yep. The natural progression will come. If you're industrious and you work hard and you do it well, you will naturally get promoted, and there's opportunity all over the place. Yeah.
And if you know why,
yes,
and you've got a purpose, and I think those are things that people. It's very difficult. I look at the youngsters now and I think, God, it's a tough old world. Then I think, I had 2 and 3 jobs and stuff, so I'm thinking, well, it ain't that tough. Then you go back again and you think. And then you see all the pressures, social pressures from phones and Facebook and everything else. It's a myriad of potential problems that are going to come up. So if somebody wants to knuckle down, back to basics, good old-fashioned standards, they can go anywhere in the world, make an impact.
Definitely.
And somebody you mentioned, BFS, Colin Temple, I worked with him for, God knows, 20-odd years. And now he's out there. And what a good...
Doing his stuff, and a very successful business and doing really well.
Good man.
I mean, you're right about the youngsters. I'm next Monday, I'm literally coaching and mentoring. The DWP have asked me to go in and speak to the 18 to 24-year-old group to try and help them think about how they can get a job and how their career moves can go. So it's really keen to explain to them. And I must admit, I'm not down in the hood. I don't really understand the speak anymore. But
even coming from Essex,
even coming from Essex, but I've got one of the younger members of DBD Communications is going with me as a sort of translation, as to say, well, okay, I would say a pair of Adidas or a pair of Nikes, and they're well out of date. There's something else on their feet these days. But so there's that translation of want and need, and a lot of youngsters need that. Need to know how to get there. They sort of know what they want, but they don't know the plan or the career path of how to move to it. Yeah. So I think it's quite good that if you can try and help them, and it just makes you feel good, doesn't it? If you put something back
God,
into the community, well, that's what I've done with coaching, with rugby. It's what I'm doing with the core, the levers from out of the REMI, and then this thing with the DWP. They've asked us to go in, and we're going to try and help them. Give the youngsters some encouragement to try and bring them into something, whatever that is, whatever they want to do.
That's fantastic. And they don't know what doors are going to open.
No, of course not.
But don't you think that's also something that's important to let people know? And everybody has problems in their life. It's just one of those things. And you fall.
Yeah.
But you can only change it once you hit your own bottom. And then it's what you do when you look back up again.
It's very valuable.
And I think people, sometimes they need to be told, don't worry if things are going wrong, because it will eventually stop, but not keep thinking that it's going to continue. Now, what you're doing next week, fantastic. Now, if you had to tell them why they should consider coming into the aviation industry, what would you say are the biggest areas of attraction and reward?
Well, I think, as I say, I think there's career path progression, definitely. I think it's an exciting, growing business. That more and more people now are becoming used to getting on a plane and going somewhere. Yeah. So the industry is definitely growing. So it's good to go into an industry that's on the up rather than on the decline. If you're going into building rope knots or something like that, you may not be as successful as getting into something like aviation. So, it's definitely an industry that's on the up. Now, it's then working out what you want to do. Do you want to sit in an office but maybe linked to the aviation industry?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to get out in the fresh air and roll your sleeves up and get, and do something sort of physical? The options are there. There's many options to choose. And if you start learning about aviation, then the background knowledge of the core market that you're going into will help you in any position, whether it's in HR, finance, ground movements, engineering, it's all there. And
the opportunities to experience lots of the supply chain itself is, I think it's that's what we've got to do as a big group. We've got to sell it better. And somebody was telling me a statistic that by 2035, as this is mainly on cargo as well, the majority of the senior managers that are in the business now, they won't be there.
Yeah, okay.
And how prepared are people to get others to either come in and be at least as good as the ones that are there now, preferably better, so that they can lift the business, grow the pie. And obviously you're on rail and air, but all these modal competition and how it swings and economies and everything, it's so important that people understand.
I think succession planning in it is the success of any business. You've got to realise that none of us last forever. Yeah. So you need to make sure by bringing up, you need that succession available to you when the time is right to move and keep people moving on. And you're only going to do that by mentoring and coaching. Yeah. But you need good guidance for that. You need to know what gets you excited, what makes you get out of bed and want to go to work in the morning. We all sometimes moan, and it might be a Monday morning or a Friday morning, or you want to get on the golf course, or you want to go and do the gardening or something like that. But there's always that. If you haven't got the passion and flair to go to work, then you really need to start looking at something that you do have the passion and flair for, because you're spending 8 hours of your day normally, possibly more, at that place. The other 8 hours is probably sleeping. So, a third of your day is going in your work life. You've got to enjoy it, otherwise it's no fun.
And you've got to enjoy it because it's your time. And like you said, you don't get it back. You can't sell it, can't put it in a box.
No, exactly.
And if you can realise a purpose, even if it's because you want to save for something or look after the family or somewhere else or whatever, as long as you've got a purpose, enjoy the time. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. Now, yourself, what do you do? Now, obviously the coaching, the rugby coaching, retired.
Yeah,
so
retired.
What do you do now to wind down? And
you can't wind down, can you? Are you still allowed to wind down? I don't know. Yes, of course we do. I
to a degree.
I clearly watch. I still enjoy rugby. Right, I watch the rugby obviously at the moment. Yep. The World Cup's on at the moment. England's is doing fantastic at the moment. Yeah. Keep them going. I mean, it takes an Australian to G us up, but at the end of the day, we seem to be doing the right stuff at the moment, which I'm quite excited about.
Yeah, Mr. Jones doing well.
Mr. Jones, Eddie, good lad. So I think I still enjoy watching the rugby and getting involved. I don't get involved as much in rugby as I used to. Gardening, I'm sad that I'm still sort of starting to consider like what I'm going to be doing in final retirement. So greenhouse is being considered for the back garden at the moment. Still doing a lot of work sort of around the house, that sort of thing. Love socialising, always have done. Like go out to, I like a beer with anyone, but
as part of rugby.
As part of rugby culture, absolutely. Fishing, I quite enjoy a bit of fishing when I can fit it in. It's obviously busy times at the moment, but it's nice to get out and go fishing, especially with my lad. He likes a bit of fishing as well. We can spare the time. Holidaying with the children and the family. We managed to get all of us out, which is quite rare, but we managed to get out to the Canary Islands this year. But we had a week with all of us there, and the grandchildren and the kids and
that's lovely. Yeah?
Oh, it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. That you can't better those times. It's great.
It's brilliant. Let's see how good you are at the rugby. Okay. So when this goes out, okay, may or may not be all done and dusted. What do you reckon? Who's going to be in the final?
No, I think we'll be there.
Yeah,
I do think we'll be there. I'm not quite sure who we'll be facing, but I think we'll be there.
Yeah, and what sort of winning margin? Now, let's have a point spread.
Okay, if we win, which I hope we really do, and you can never know the final, but I think we'll win by 7 points, trying a conversion.
7 points. I was going to say it depends. Like, again, who it is. If it was the infamous bad boys, then I would say it would be between 3 and 7. And if not, well, I have to go more than you then. So I'll go 10 to 14.
Okay.
Spread.
Let's see.
Let's see what the outcome is.
Yeah.
But touch wood, it'll be the right one. Now, if I was to ask Amanda, what would she say she'd like to see change in you?
Less time in work, probably. I think when you grow a business, you become passionate about the business. It is your baby. Amanda's been much more successful at me. She's wound herself out. She's down to about 3.5 days a week now, which is good, and partly due to Claire coming on board and Claire taking some of the stuff and some other bits and pieces we're shifting around the company. I think she does. Obviously, and so do I, want to start winding down at a point, but I can't wind it down yet. It's not ready to wind down. I'm not ready to wind down yet either. But realistically, I think that's what she'd say. Yeah,
it's funny. The majority of people we ask the same question to, they all say the same. And then they also say that, but the nature of the business is 24/7. And the commitment and the passion. So then the question I would ask, and even my wife, she says the same. I would say, would you prefer me to have less passion and engagement? And so it is a fine balance. Now, here's another one while we're on a roll.
Okay.
Right. So if I also said to her, what would the song be that would get you up no matter where you were? What is your song? What's the go-to song?
Me singing.
No, not singing. No,
Okay.
just your favourite song. As a rugby man, you're obviously
I've obviously swing low. But I think We Are the Champions always gets you going, doesn't it? Tina Turner. No, is it Tina Turner?
That's Queen, isn't it? Queen, yeah.
And then Simply the Best by Tina Turner. That's I like those two. They're motivating songs, aren't they? And then you've got
it's almost like the old marching music.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't quite jump up for marching music, but yeah, no, those two. And the other one is The Eye of the Tiger. Has always been one that you can get.
Oh, blimey, yeah, old Rocky.
Yeah, old Rocky film, yeah. I used to like the Rocky films. But
he's got a new one out now, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. Rocky number 506 or whatever
God knows what it is.
I don't know. Rocky retired. But
is it Rocky or Rambo?
No, Rambo's just been released, and Creed 1 and 2 are continuations from Rocky. So Creed 2 just came out.
There you go.
See how quick that was, yeah.
I'm impressed.
Hey. Stat though.
Yeah, good,
well
stats.
done, well done.
Thank you.
Good. Right. So now, before we bring it into a close, if you were to come back now in 5 years, what sort of innovation or improvements would you like to see from your perspective
in aviation?
In aviation. Yeah.
I would like to see the market embrace wireless technology more. There's still some Luddite culture in not wanting to change. Yeah. I think. There is this, we've led the plane out on a long lead for so long. We're still going to do that. And I think at the end of the day, that is a culture that people are aware of and very comfortable with. However, technology is moving on. The extra efficiencies and ability to go wireless, or not just a headset man, but the ability to put your de-icing crews into wireless so they can cooperate and communicate to each other at the same time. The ability to put cargo loaders with cargo masters, people like that all communicating wirelessly. The technology's there. It's been there for years. It's just the industry is not embracing it fully yet.
It's right, because when you see the red caps running around or people looking for someone, that would solve all those problems, wouldn't it?
Of course it is.
And what about when they automate the tugs?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, the issue is sometimes technology can go too far, and I think the robotic tugs still need someone in the loop. But the problem is, I think at the moment, is the robotic tug is no different to the cost or the innovation of an actual tug. So we're putting technology into something that's actually may not be necessarily needed at the moment.
Okay.
So I think you could have a single man push in a normal tug, and you can remote that tug if you really want to stand off the tug. But then if you've got to then move that particular technology to another side of the airport, it's much easier to sit in a tug and drive it rather than it is to stick with a set of joysticks and move it across the airfield. Yeah. It's again horses for courses. Some airports suit this robotic type activity, and some it just doesn't match. So the more technology we can pour into the industry when it's appropriate and when it matches is good. But I think sometimes it can be exaggerated too far just because it becomes
for the sake of innovation. Yeah. No, I agree with it. Right. Okay, we've come to the close. Okay. Right, thank you so much. Now, one of the things I said that I would do about a title, which will appear for reference for yourself, is From Military to Rugby, a coach for all seasons, day by day.
Oh, lovely.
The reason I put day by day is it stands for DBD. And I knew we'd end with DBD for me making the mistake at the beginning.
That's all right.
All right, so whenever you hear day by day now, anybody, you'll be thinking DBD.
Thank you very much.
Really, Dave, it's a great privilege. Thank you so much for your time. And it's a great story. Lovely to hear the family all being part of it. And we wish you great success moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.